Hello everyone. So this will be a detailed lesson slash memorization guide for learning the first movement of the C-sharp minor sonata, also known popularly as the Moonlight Sonata. So I'm not going to go as slowly as I do in some of my more beginner lessons. I'm going to assume you have a working knowledge of notes and sharps and chords and things like that. So let's get started. So here's our first measure. It's a C-sharp minor chord with an octave in the left hand. You'll find this voicing a lot throughout the first movement of the sonata. So how do we get this to flow? Well, you want to think about the meter of the music and why it sounds the way it does, right? It's written in 2/2 time, but actually it sounds like it has a bunch of triplets, right? These triplets, right? So each one of the triplets should have a mini meter inside of it that goes 2 3 1 2 3 1. So like that, you hear that circle. So instead of hearing, right? So to get it to flow, you think 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1, and then the big meter is 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So that's how you get it to flow. So the big meter is 2 3 4 1, a circle from 2 across and back to 1. So to play that, I would think 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1. So I always have a motion to 1, but I do it without accents. And you can hear that circle in that flow, and it keeps the music from getting heavy. Okay, so now let's go over the individual notes. So we have a C-sharp minor chord, and then we have a C-sharp minor with a 7th in the bass. Then we have an A major chord, and then a D major chord, and then G sharp 7, C sharp minor, G sharp 7 with a suspended 4th, and then G sharp 7. So when you memorize, you want to memorize each measure at a time, right? So A, D, next measure, G sharp, C sharp minor, G sharp suspended, G sharp 7, and then C sharp minor. So now, this, you have your right hand playing both accompaniment and melody, right? So how do you bring out this? And what exact rhythm do you play, right? What it looks like is like a 4 against 3, but you have a 12/8 type of rhythm. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So what exactly do I play? I play 1 2 3 4 5 6 1, and I play that last G sharp on the 6th one. This is called the stylization of the rhythm, right? So not only does jazz have a swing to it, but classical music has a swing. Now this is a choice that I make musically. So I go 1 2 3 4 5 6 1. So I actually play this as a sextuplet. Why? Well, it fits in with the triplet, right? And when somebody hears that, that person accepts it as being musical, right? Now, you may do 4 against 3, but that's your choice if you'd like to do that, right? So the other thing I do to get this G sharp to sound is I bring my elbow into my body, right? So that puts the weight on my pinky, right? So when I play, the other thing is I play this very long because melodies tend to be longer, okay? So playing this measure, and that gets that to come out. In my left hand, I'm also bringing my elbow in because the bass note is on the pinky. So that's the note I want. So I want this note, and I want this note. This is the way I can play both rich and pianissimo at the same time. And now you hear all the notes. So how do we get from this chord? This is a C sharp minor chord, and this is a G sharp 7 chord, right? With the B sharp in the bass. So it has the third in the bass. So this is also how we're going to memorize these first two measures. C sharp minor, G sharp 7, G sharp 7, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, E, B7, E. Okay, so now there's a, we can memorize this measure next, C sharp minor. So if you number your measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this is measure 7. F sharp minor. So what's going on here in the right hand? The right hand has a first violin and a second violin. The second violins are doing this. And the first violins are doing this. So notice that the first violins are not going to let go of their note. See, first violins have not let go of the note. So that's also important in our voicing. So we have C sharp minor. We're memorizing this measure. F sharp minor. E. Okay, so let's do our next measure. E, B7, and then we have this. So B and A at the same time. And notice we're dragging our thumb both times here, right? So drag your thumb. And you have to do it very, very, very elegantly so we don't hear you doing it, right? So you may pause the video, learn up to this part, and then we'll meet you in the next part. So now we're in E major, and then E minor. Now that's a big deal, isn't it, right? You have to make a big deal of that. E major, and it's a huge move to suddenly just go. It's like all the air got let out of the tire, right? Major, minor. So we're doing our same pinky trick, right? So E minor, and then G7. Okay, so we're going to memorize this measure. G7. So we have a G, a B, an F, and a D. So we have the fifth in the bass. C. Okay, so next measure. C, E minor, So this is a G diminished 7th. And it goes to F sharp 7, B minor. Okay, so this measure. So C, E minor, G diminished 7th, F sharp 7. If I play the whole chord, B minor. Okay, let's go on. B minor. So you can think of this as an E minor 6th. It's actually a half diminished chord. But just think about it as E minor 6th. Very easy. And it just inverts. So B minor, E minor 6th, with the G in the bass, and then B minor, F sharp 7, and now we're solidly in B minor. So F sharp is 5 of B minor. So we've shifted now to B minor. Okay, so here's our next measure, B minor. And then B major. Right? So it's another big deal, right? B minor. Right. And why does that sound so plaintive? Well, that's because you have a C natural against the B. And you have to make a big deal of that. And the hard thing about that is that you're with your weakest fingers, right? Your fifth finger. So it has to have a lot of effort to get there. So B minor, B major, E minor, E minor, E minor. So what does Beethoven do here? He puts wrong notes in the E minor chord. First that C natural, and then the A sharp. And those really clash, and you have to bring those out. So let's do the clashy measure. C natural with the E minor chord. A sharp, still E minor, B. And then the same thing happens again. So then you end up on B, and then what happens? What is that chord? Well, that's a G sharp diminished 7th. Beethoven has a way of voicing the chord so that you don't really realize it's a diminished 7th, but that's a diminished 7th. And those are the chords you will tend to forget when you're playing by memory. Right? So a diminished 7th is usually a 7 of something. And then what happens next? C sharp 7. See, here's our third, it's in the bass, and then F sharp minor. So memorizing that one measure at a time. Going back to the second B major, C sharp 7. So make sure you memorize that one measure, because that's a very pivotal measure in harmony. C sharp 7. I'm sorry, G sharp diminished 7th, right? And then C sharp 7. And then F sharp minor. And then G major! It's a Neapolitan chord, right? Now it's a completely different world almost on every chord, right? G sharp diminished 7th. C sharp 7, F sharp minor, and then G. And there's another diminished 7th chord, F sharp diminished 7th. Okay, so we can memorize the G measure, G, F sharp diminished 7th. And let's go on. So you can pause the video up to there and then come back. Now F sharp minor. We're going to go into F sharp minor. C sharp suspended 4th, C sharp F sharp minor. So let's memorize that. F sharp minor, C sharp, suspended fourth, C sharp major, which is our 5 chord, F sharp minor. F sharp minor. What's that chord? If you said C sharp 7, you are correct. So now we're in F sharp minor. And so F sharp is our 1 and C sharp 7 is our 5, right? In Beethoven, we love to have the 3rd in the bass. Okay, so now we're back to F sharp minor. What's that? Another diminished 7th chord, right? So it's D sharp diminished 7th. And then it's just a passing tone. And then we end up with a G sharp 7 chord, which is a 5 for C sharp minor. So it means we're going back to our correct key, which is C sharp minor. So let's do this measure, right? So we're memorizing each measure by itself. So F sharp minor, and crescendo, diminished, D sharp diminished, F sharp, G sharp 7. Okay, let's go on from there. G sharp 7, G sharp 7, C sharp minor. So see how we're doing this? We're linking each measure to its next downbeat, right? So G sharp 7, G sharp 7, C sharp minor. Okay, let's go on. What is that chord? If you said D sharp diminished, you're correct. That's our chord right there. What is that? Diminished 7th. So 2 diminished 7th chords in a row. So we're just going from that diminished to that diminished. So here's that measure. We're going to memorize that. C sharp minor, F sharp diminished, F double sharp diminished, G sharp. Right? So now we end up on 5. Right? So remember, our main key is C sharp minor, and G sharp 7 is our 5. So now we're going to extend our 5 chord for a while. So let's see what happens. So this is just a G sharp, right? And then he adds tension by putting a wrong note, that A natural. So one of the things too is when you're looking at what notes to give more feeling to, if you look at the accidentals, usually those notes are going to pop out at you. So you see you have an A natural in this measure. And that note is very, very, very expressive, right? So let's memorize this measure. And again, we're holding on to these notes while we play the other notes, right? And then the next measure, it happens the same way, G sharp, except for now the thumb does it. Right, so then the thumb plays E and resolve. So let's do that measure. There's the thumb measure. Okay, our next measure, now it's going to be a C sharp minor chord. Well, this measure doesn't have any non-chord tones, it's just a C sharp minor chord, right? And then the left hand's going to do the same. I'm my left hand. It's just down an octave. Still right hand. So now what happens? What's this? It's just an arpeggio on a diminished seventh chord, right? And it sounds like, it makes it sound as if it's very, very smoky, right? Mysterious. Like you're looking through smoke and you can't see what's going on. Or fog. And if you keep it in the pedal, right, so we're memorizing that one measure, and then the next note is a C sharp minor. So C sharp minor, right? We'll do that again. And what's the next chord? So it's a C sharp diminished seventh chord, right? And it's all over this, everything's over this G sharp. So we have a 5 note. This is a 5. Basically, this is all a 5 chord, right? Because we keep that G sharp pedal. Do you hear that? Okay, and then the next chord. So if you've memorized this much, then you could pause the video and then come back to this next part. So what's this? Technically it's a F sharp, A, C, D sharp. It's a F sharp diminished seventh chord. And then we just come back down. So we're going to memorize 2 measures this time, right? Going up on that diminished seventh chord, and then coming down. So memorize those 2 measures, and then we're going to go on. Something happens now with the voicing that's a little out of whack, right? So we were holding this G sharp, coming down on this diminished chord. We have 3 blind mice in minor, right? And not really 3 blind mice, but kind of, you can think of it as 3 blind mice, right? But what happens to the first note? It comes down on the second 8th note, right? Which gives it makes it unpredictable and asymmetrical. So the beginning of this measure, hold, hold, hold. Did you see where that comes in? So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Hold, hold, hold. Right? I can't tell you how many times I've heard people play that wrong. Hold, hold, hold. And what's this? It's kind of a G sharp 7 chord, right? But it also has the makings of a diminished chord, right? And then this one's square, right on the beat. So the hold comes on the first. Hold, hold, hold. So let's play those 2 measures together, and how are they different? Coming back out of the diminished 7th chord. This one comes later actually, right? Hold, 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 and then on the beat. And then it's a D natural. So how different is that D natural from D sharp? You can play them right away, right next to one another. And then you hear that difference, right? So you want to make a difference when you get there. Okay, so let's play let's play the whole diminished seventh chord section together, coming out of this next part right here, diminished sevenths, diminished seventh, C sharp minor over G sharp, C sharp diminished seventh, F sharp diminished seventh, and then we go up and we come back down. Keep going. Hold, hold, hold. D sharp, hold, hold, and then D natural. Then what happens? A major. It's a complete new world, right? Beethoven's able to just shift harmonically like that. Okay? Okay, so let's go on. So the coming out of the, after the D natural measure, right? So we have the G sharp, almost the diminished seventh chord with the melodic figure, right? A. What is that? Well, that's a D sharp half diminished chord, right? For it to be a fully diminished chord, it would be this, but we have a dominant seventh, and it gives it a very expressive sound. And it's going to resolve to R5. So let's memorize that measure. After the A major, the half diminished chord, G sharp, and then G sharp 7. See that? So this moves down, right? Again, G sharp, G sharp 7, C sharp minor. And we are now back in the main key of our piece. Okay, so let's go on. You already know how to do this from the beginning. G sharp 7. You already know this part, right? G sharp 7, C sharp, F sharp minor, E, B7. Okay, now, different from the first part. The first part, remember, we went to E minor, but this one he's going to continue E major now. So he's like, why don't we try something in E major? Which would be the most obvious thing, is just do a B7 chord, right? So E major is E and then B7, right? This is where a lot of people get lost, because they might try to play E minor, which means you'll be playing this first movement for the rest of your life if you keep playing E minor here, because it takes you back to the beginning. Now you have to play the whole thing, right? So remember, this time E major, you stay, B7, B7. Okay, so you memorize those two measures. Okay, so let's go on from there. E major, G sharp, C sharp, G sharp. So what happens? We have a subito piano, right? So we have to play as if we're going to go to that G sharp 7 and play it loudly, right? So you could practice that. E, G sharp, C sharp, G sharp. Right? So you have that. I'm going to play that loud. Now you just don't. You actually have to even fool yourself when you play this, and you'll play the subito piano. So here we go. E major, G sharp, the other trick is to just delay the downbeat and then don't play loud, just play soft. Okay, so you're going to memorize this measure. E, G sharp, C sharp, G sharp. All right, let's do it one last time. E, G sharp, C sharp, G sharp, C sharp. So we're going to memorize the G sharp, C sharp measure. G sharp, subito piano, C sharp. And then what happens? D. Okay, so what you do is you're in C sharp, right? In C sharp minor. And if you play a half step higher in first inversion, it's a Neapolitan chord. You hear that all the time, and then it goes to 5, right? So you can do the 1, Neapolitan, 5, 1. You've heard this progression a gazillion times, right? So D major chord here, very striking. And according to formula, it goes to 5, G sharp 7, C sharp. Okay, so let's memorize these two measures from the subito piano G sharp 7 chord, C sharp minor, Neapolitan D, G sharp 7. Right. Now, following the convention of the sonata form, we are now at the second theme, and it is in our key, our regular key. Right? We are in C sharp minor, and then we go to C sharp major. And we have our same strike, except for now we're going to have an F sharp minor chord with a D natural in it. So here we go. C sharp minor, C sharp major, F sharp minor, F sharp minor with a B sharp. Right? So if you just went up to the piano and did this, it sounds like you're playing a wrong note, or this one. Right? So those notes are very expressive, and we can use those. So C sharp minor, C sharp major, F sharp minor with a D natural, B sharp, F sharp minor, right? And then C sharp minor, C sharp major, I'm sorry. Okay, so once we've memorized that, we have our C sharp major again. And we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so next measure, C sharp major. And then what happens? Just a plain old F sharp minor chord, which would be a 4 in C sharp minor, right? So this is easy to memorize. C sharp, major, F sharp. And then what's the next chord? B7 in the first inversion. So we're going to go back to E minor. Remember E minor from a long time ago. E minor. Oh, I'm sorry, E major. Right? So we couldn't have known, right? So, see, if you're the audience, I was thinking about that. If you're the audience, you don't know whether it's going to be E major or E minor. Even if you don't know what chords are, even if you've never had a piano lesson or a music lesson, right? He could have done this. He could have done this. But he didn't. He did. Right? So what you need to do is not play it as if you know what it's going to be. And when you get there, it's a surprise for everybody. Okay, does that make sense? So B major, E major. So I think we have that measure memorized. Now we have the hardest measure to memorize in the whole piece. Why? Because you have 4 chords. You have a chord on every beat. And the harmonic rhythm is faster in this measure than any other measure. So it goes like this. And I would suggest you learn it this way, as whole chords. So what's that? It's an A major chord with a little clash. Right? So it has this 2-3 suspension. And then what's this? B7, and then G sharp 7, and then C sharp. Right? So you have A major, then you have B7, and then you have G sharp 7 and C sharp minor. So when you play it all together, it looks like this. And then what's the next chord? It's a half diminished chord, but it's easier in this instance, in this inversion, to think about it as an F sharp minor 6. See, so C sharp minor. It's actually a G sharp suspended 4th. And that G sharp is a passing tone to the F sharp minor 6, or the half diminished chord. Right? So here's this measure. F sharp minor 6th, G sharp suspended 4th, and then subito piano on the C sharp minor. Right? In the 6-4 position, or the 5th is in the bass. G sharp 7, and then finally we're in C sharp minor for good. So this means we are now at the coda of the piece, right? And the piece is technically over, and we are going to play the tail end. Okay, so let's memorize it from the fast harmonic rhythm section. So A, B7, G sharp 7, C sharp, F sharp minor 6th, G sharp suspended 4th, F sharp minor 6th, C sharp minor, G sharp 7, C sharp minor. Okay, so now let's go on. Next measure. So, how do I get this note to come out? So I want to play as long as possible and gauge where the keys come up. And I want to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. And that way I get a nice stylized dotted rhythm, right? So here we go. Also, one more thing, let's talk about the elbow. So the elbow is going to go actually a little bit away from my body, so now my weight is on my thumb. So I hear my melody. And there's some inevitability about this G sharp pedal. It just does not go away, and it's there forever. It's tolling like a bell, right? So here we go. So C sharp minor. G sharp 7. C sharp minor. So this is a F sharp diminished 7th. Okay, so let's do our C sharp minor arpeggio measure. Okay, and then our next measure, diminished 7th. So notice that our B sharp holds like that. So we want to hear it like as if we were playing with 2 hands. So we want to have that nice voicing. Let's memorize this measure. A holds B, G sharp. So that's just the right hand, and then we have to get the left hand in there. So do you see how all of that works, right? It's very, very powerful to practice one measure at a time, get one measure down, right? Let's go on. So next measure, C sharp. So we've had these resolutions. C sharp minor, diminished seventh. We've done this already. This just repeats. C sharp minor. And we're just going to go down the chord. So now we want this note to come out. We want that third because we have an open fifth in the left hand. So we want to hear that whole chord, okay? Another tip at the end is do no retard, right? Just to decrescendo, right? So if you keep going, so what the audience will hear if you keep going is it'll still be going, as if the piece never started. It was always going when it started, and it always it's always going when it ended. Okay, so let's do this last bit. Let's do the whole coda, right? Because now you want to memorize the whole coda, right? So starting. And what are you thinking in the last measure, right? Are you just playing notes, or are you thinking la da 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 da, and then you just let this chord die out? All right, well, I hope this helped you get this first movement memorized, and also getting yourself to play and helping you with the tricks. As always, I wish you fun in your practicing, and have a great day. Thank you for watching.